America has just experienced a terrorist bombing in New York and New Jersey, and a knifing rampage in Minnesota. In the Minnesota Mall incident, it's clear that this was an act of Islamic terrorism. The perpetrator was reportedly asking victims if they were Muslim before he attacked them. And of course, we heard the obligatory Allah Akbar. In addition, ISIS has released a statement about the attack. And let me quote the ISIS statement here. The executor of the stabbing attacks in Minnesota yesterday was a soldier of Islamic State, and he was carrying out the operation in response to calls to target the citizens of countries belonging to the Crusader Coalition. Of course, that event was overshadowed by the bombings and is going to fall off the front page very quickly. But I'm sure that we're going to hear the propagandists in the mainstream American media tell us that this was not really an ISIS soldier, but rather a lone wolf malcontent. Allow me to use the words of Hillary Clinton. At this point, what difference does it make? In New York and New Jersey, we all know that some bombs went off, and there were others discovered undetonated. The unexploded bombs were in a pressure cooker like the ones used at the Boston Marathon. And our agenda-driven leftist press corps is finding it oh so very important at this time to take this opportunity to trash Donald Trump. You see, Donald said that this explosion was a bomb before anyone knew for sure that it was a bomb. But wait a minute, at the same time, New York Governor Cuomo has said that the attack didn't appear to be linked to international terrorism. Hey, journalist, was that statement premature as well? Just asking. But of course, now that the FBI is searching for an Afghani man, the press is going to be going out of their way to emphasize the majority of Muslims are peace-loving, and they do not support terrorist activities. And I'm sure they're right, especially here in America. I'm certain that the majority of American Muslims, that's well over 50% of them, reject terrorist activities. Now, the rest of the world, let's just say that I have the hope that most of all of God's children walking the earth today would have some value for peace. But that isn't where I want to go with this today. What I want to do today is compare this narrative that the press is delivering to assure us that the terrorists do not represent the majority of Muslims. And let's compare this with another, albeit far less important story in the news today, and see the way the press is covering that by comparison. Starting with Colin Kaepernick of the San Francisco 49ers. There's a trend now for NFL athletes to take a knee during the playing of the national anthem as a protest. We have seen 2s and 3s and 4s of these athletes at other NFL games parrot this protest, and our leftist press corps finds this absolutely delightful, and they bend over backwards to justify and give a voice to Mr. Kaepernick and his followers. But let's now put this back into the same perspective that we were talking about Islamic terrorists. The NFL allows a 54-man roster. When Colin Kaepernick took a knee, he represented 1.85% of the active players in uniform for the San Francisco 49ers. Colin does not represent the majority of the players. And in another game, though, there were 4 of them, 4 Miami Dolphins who took a knee. That ups the percentage to over 7% of that 54-man squad. This percentage, by the way, does not take into consideration other team personnel, coaches, training staff, other supported personnel. Let's just say conservatively that there's another 15 of those people in that group, probably more. But if we use the 15, that would make the 4 Miami players that took a knee, well, right around 5% of the team representatives on the sidelines. Again, that does not represent the majority of the team personnel. So help me out here. Why does the press give so much importance to 5% or less of the NFL players who seem to think America isn't fair? And then tell us that we don't need to worry about the minority of Muslims who support jihad. That minority, by the way, is estimated as much as 20% or even more worldwide. Now, if you're a leftist still listening, and I doubt that you are, you've already put me in your basket of deplorables. You've already tagged me as being Islamophobic because I'm using the word Islam and terrorism in the same sentence. I'm also sure that you're seeing me as xenophobic because I seem to find offense with privileged athletes who have made a fortune in the American capitalist system acting like spoiled children when they play the national anthem. And obviously you've labeled me as a racist because Colin Kaepernick, you see, is black, or at least half black. But let me give you a clue about that. I never did care about Colin Kaepernick's ethnicity. I was actually somewhat of a fan of his and his style of play, even though those San Francisco 49ers were the most bitter rival of my old St. Louis Rams. Let me throw you lefties another curve. I actually feel Kaepernick and the others have the absolute right to express themselves. They're exercising their First Amendment rights. A right that you lefties wish to deny anyone who holds a view opposed to your allegedly enlightened opinion. And I know how much you lefties like to categorize people, but honestly, I don't think deplorable would be the word on the basket that I would use for Colin Kaepernick. But I do find his stance ungrateful, immature. But one way or the other, Colin, I hope you grow up someday. I hope you take a second look at the garbage that your college professors and the race baiters have put into your head. I regret to say I don't have much hope in that happening. That hate and resentment that you have embraced are truly addictive. Just like a drug, they're going to eat you up from the inside out. And worse yet, they're going to wreak havoc with everyone around you. You don't sound much like a team player anymore. I guess to sum this up, personally, I reject the brainwashing and the hogwash that's presented to us daily by the mainstream media. They're not trying to inform us. They're not trying to give us multiple sides of any issues. They're simply doing their absolute best to shape our thinking and promote their beloved socialist narrative. There's a place for socialism, you know. Socialism is for insects. Thanks for watching, and perhaps we'll see you again soon.